Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where we are implementing the on-minute tick for our buildings so that these progresses actually happen. Now, we need to implement a couple of things here. So I think the first thing that we're going to do is along the lines of our max capacity here. We're going to create a new section here, and I'm going to do a header here, and this header is simply going to read progress. And then we're going to have one down here, header and speed and capacity. Now, for a max capacity, we're going to go ahead and do a get, but no set. Now that's not going to return anything just yet, and that's going to be a problem. This is causing an issue. It's only valid on field declarations. That's kind of weird. Maybe if we just return 0 for now, it would work? Nope. Okay, that's definitely weird. So I'm going to go ahead and say if manager equals no, then we just return 0. Else, we're going to do something a little bit more complicated for this max capacity, and that is we're going to get manager dot business dot balance dot get building balance from type. And here we're going to be using our building type. So this is simply type. And for right now, this will be dot vehicle capacity. And then we just return that. Now that's not going to be the final thing that we're going to do, because we are going to need a public float max capacity modifier. And for right now, the question becomes, how does this work? Does this increase it by a percentage? If so, if you start at 1, you're going to need a big percentage. So, like, increasing by 20%. Great, you can have 1.2 vehicles. Or is it just an int? And then we just add it. Plus max capacity modifier. I think that's good. Okay. And we can actually then... yeah, we can leave this the way it is. So then the next section that we're going to need to have here, and this is still going to be under the speed and capacity header, we're going to need a public float upkeep speed. And we'll decide how exactly that works here in a second. And also a public float upkeep modifier. Yeah, that's going to be what we're going to need, I think. Because the upkeep speed is... the upkeep is monthly, whereas the other progresses are hourly. So that's something we need to consider. But I don't think we're ever going to have a modifier on the upkeep. That will always be monthly. There might be a modifier on the upkeep cost. So public int upkeep modifier, and actually this should be a float. So public float upkeep modifier, and then public float upkeep cost, and then we would get and do the same thing we did here, except instead of max capacity modifier, we are going to be using upkeep modifier. And instead of vehicle capacity, we will be doing upkeep, like so. So essentially this just allows us to very easily grab our upkeep cost without having to update it every time we change the building type. That's what the idea here is. So then our sorting progress would be public float sorting modifier and public float, and actually this can be an int. And then this would be a public int. This modifier actually could be a float. And all of these modifiers could be multipliers. So then this would be equals 1.0f to start with. That would be 1.0f. So that would allow us to do upgrades so that it's like each rank of this reduces your upkeep by 10% or something to that effect. And then the capacity ones are just flat because what's the point in having 0.1 extra cars? There is none. So then the public int sorting number would then be the same as this. Something isn't quite right here. Oh, I didn't copy the get. There we go. Okay, so we would then be returning sorting capacity, which is actually a float. We'll do mathf.round2int, and then we will multiply that by the sorting modifier. Excellent. And then the next thing that we're going to do is the final thing, public float, and this will be the loading modifier equals 1.0f, and then public int loading number, and then we would return basically this same exact thing again, except we are getting the loading capacity times the loading modifier. Okay. So we now have all of this automatically fetching it. Now it's going to be fetching this every in-game minute for every building. And it also bears noting that the get building balance from type is going to be returning null. Right? No, that's the vehicle. It's going to be returning generic. Okay, good. So we do have a generic building that it's going to be returning. And in our generic balance, what is currently set up for all of those things? Construction cost, 0. Demolition cost, 300. Upkeep cost, 0. Everything else is fine. Okay, perfect. And we have a compile error. Need a closing bracket there. And that was the only actual error. Perfect. Okay, so with that being the case, now we can come on down to our building.onMinuteTick, and we can consider actually doing this progress here. So, in the minute tick, let's go ahead and do something along the lines of, because the speed will remain the same always, it's the amount that it ticks. So, the progress would be 1 over 60. So, float our progress equals 1f over 60f. We can pre-calculate that so that we're not calculating that all the time. So 1 divided by 60 is 0.016 repeating. So 0.016, and we'll just go to a couple of figures here before we round that off. There we go. That'll do. And then the monthly tick, we need to figure out how many minutes are in a month. And that's a little bit more complicated. We can't just pre-calculate that one. So let's go ahead and do a float monthly progress equals, and then we're going to need to get the number of days in this current month times the number of minutes per day. So I believe in the time manager we do have a method for getting the number of days in the month. That is in our current time in the moment class. We'll go to the implementation of that. So we've got all of this, and then get days in month. Yes. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and use that. So equals manager.moment. This is the time manager, right? Yeah, that's the time manager. Why can't we get time manager.moment? Oh, because I called it current time. Current time dot get days in month. Current, or rather, manager dot current time dot month. There we go. And that will get us our current number of days, and then we need to multiply that by the number of minutes per day. So we're assuming no leap seconds or anything like that. So we've got 60 minutes per hour. There are 24 hours per day. So that's 1440 minutes per day. Easy enough. Times 1440. And then all we need to do is put that in parentheticals to make sure it happens first, and then take the inversion of that. So 1 over, say, 30 times 1440. So that would be 1 over 30 times 1440. It's a small number. It's a very small number. But that's to be expected. So, then we can go ahead and say something along the lines of upkeep progress plus equals monthly progress plus equals monthly progress. There we go. And then our sorting progress plus equals our progress. And our loading progress would be the same, plus equals loading progress. Okay, so we've got that going on now. And then the question is, do I actually want it to only happen on the tick? Or do I want it to happen throughout the tick? Like, every time it does the minute tick, do we want to get credit towards getting, or having to pay $1, for example? Or do we want to just say, when it reaches 1, it then deducts the upkeep, or it then does the sorting? I think it's the latter. It's just going to be so much easier to implement. We can always come back and change it later if we feel like it really must be changed. So I'm going to go ahead and say if upkeep progress is greater than or equal to 1, because it finishes at 1, then we're going to say upkeep progress minus equals 1. And then, because we want to, if we progress slightly beyond it, because it doesn't perfectly round, which I'm going to suspect this won't perfectly round, we want to keep that slight progress beyond it. So the upkeep progress would then be deducted by 1, and we would then say business, or rather manager.business, dot balance minus equals. We aren't already doing that here, are we? Expected expenditure. We kind of are, but not really is the answer. So minus equals update, or rather upkeep cost, which the balance, or no, dot current funds is the word we're looking for, not balance. Oh boy, I need to wake up. It's only episode 2. Let's do this. So if the sorting progress is greater than or equal to 1F, we do the same thing, sorting progress minus equals 1F, and then manager.business, or actually, at this point, I'm going to put in a comment, and we're going to call it sort parcels sorting capacity. That's not something that's implemented, and that's not something that I am... And actually this... I'm going to go ahead and rename sorting number, actually, to sorting capacity. And same with loading number. I'm going to rename that to loading capacity. I'm going to keep the modifier the way it is. Oh my. Loading capacity. There we go. Now, I'm going to keep the modifier the way it is, but I just want to unify that name a little bit. So then, if loading progress is greater than or equal to 1F, then we do loading progress minus equals 1F, load parcels, loading capacity. Okay. There we go. And then we'll need to implement those later on, obviously. But for right now, that's all I wanted to do. And now let's head on over into our hex selection window. And we've got ourselves our reference to our building. We no longer need this. That's for sure. And let's hop on over to here. Make sure that Unity compiles it all up. Come on, Unity. There you go. Balance is assigned, but its value is never used. And that's actually going to be true, isn't it? Because the balance is actually dealt with by the building, mostly. I think we don't need that. What we do need to do is we need to update these bars. That's for sure. So, first things first, let's do the upkeep bar. Upkeep bar dot update progress bar. And I do want to make sure in our update in our progress bar, which is, I'm sure here somewhere. Is that not open either? Oh my. Come on, Unity. That would be under UI, progress bar. And I just want to eliminate the update. We no longer need that. We know the progress bar is working just fine. So let's go back into our hex selection window, and we're going to be doing update progress bar, and this is going to be building.upkeep progress. And then this label is going to be building.upkeep cost .toString of type currency plus per month. Okay. Then we're going to want to have something along the lines of sorting bar dot update progress bar. This is going to be building dot sorting progress, building dot sorting capacity dot toString of currency plus per hour. Okay, and now the loading bar dot update progress bar, building dot loading progress. Building, wow, I cannot type. Building dot loading capacity. Dot toString. This isn't actually a currency. Technically, neither is this. Plus per hour. Okay. So that'll do that. And now we need our vehicle bar. So our vehicle... What do I call that? Capacity bar. Capacity bar dot update progress bar. Building dot... And for this one, it's going to be a little bit different because this works differently, right? So it's going to be building dot capacity divided by building dot max capacity. Now both of these are integers, and we don't want it to automatically round that into an integer, so let's cast both of them into floats. Just to make sure that it does that properly. And then this will just simply be building.capacity, no, capacity.toString plus a divisor plus building.maxCapacity.toString. Okay. Next, we need to be checking if building.maxCapacity is 0, because this will give a divide by 0 error if it's 0. So we need to check for this, and then we would do an else. Don't technically need the curly braces, but I'm going to use them here as well. Just so that we are a little bit more clear on what exactly is happening here. Else capacity bar dot update progress bar 0 progress, and this would be simply 0 out of 0. No need for any logic whatsoever there. We can hard code it. We know for a fact the max capacity is 0, so there's nothing to be done. Okay. Well, it's not going to exactly work as planned, but let's go ahead and run this real fast. Although, looking at the time, I do need to put a cut in here. So I'm going to put a cut in here, and next episode we will test to make sure that this is all working properly. See you all then.